Okay. So good evening and welcome to Adyan's professional community of practice. Glad to see everybody on a Saturday at 4 p.m. Ready for an hour-long session. So without much fanfare, I'm going to ask Vidushi to just set the context and introduce the session to us. Yeah, Vidushi, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This webinar is actually a part of the professional community of practice, which is an initiative that has begun with over 100 school leaders as a way to continue our own learning and collaboration. Through 2 Saturdays every month, we endeavor to collectively discuss issues, concerns, and invite speakers and experts as a way to update and upgrade ourselves. So today we're going international. We have Chaunté with us, and I'd like to ask Neha to introduce Chaunté and take this forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Vidushi. I think the key words to describe Chaunté is that she, is heads a school, is an instructional leader, part of the ASCD, and is invested in, equity and achievement for students. At this juncture, I think one more thing that I'd like to say is I read your article in, the Educational Leadership, which is the publication of ASCD, where on Twitter, which talks about, the whole time management challenges. And I think each one of us here today would be able to resonate with that. And I think from there on to now, we've all come a long way. And we have some things that, are constantly things that we have been thinking about and pondering about. And one of that is like, how do we sustain this new normal? How do we ensure that all our stakeholders are kind of motivated and we continue to do that? And of course, how do we know that what our students are learning? So with this context, I like Chaunté to take over and let's have an interactive session. Welcome, Chaunté, and thank you for waking up early in the morning today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and inviting me. And as Neha said, I am extremely invested in education, in the education of all children. And so I don't position myself as an expert in this work. I position myself as a learner. I understand that I have the responsibility to share the things that I'm learning. And so that's what I get to do through ASCD and other vehicles, is to share and glean. So we're going to be sharing and we're going to be gleaning today from each other in various ways. And we're going to do it in 35 minutes, and we're going to take some time to ask questions. So we're going to move pretty quickly. Okay. And so at this time, I'm going to get ready to share my screen so we can go ahead and jump in. And there will be times where I will ask that you will raise your hand so that I can acknowledge you and that we can be interactive. We've been moving in this Zoom world now for a couple of months. And so we want to give everyone who desires to share in the opportunity to do so. Also, we're going to take a couple of moments to go into some breakout rooms so we can have some smaller group conversations around some of the big rock pieces from today. Is that okay? All right, thank you. I'm seeing the thumbs up. I see you, thank you. Okay, all right. Let's go. And I'm going to try to pay attention to the chat. Neha and Vidushi, thank you for the invitation. I forgot to mention that. I enjoyed being able to work with you all to get here this morning. And also, if you can help me be mindful of the chat as well, that'll be great, because I want to make sure that nothing, that we get a chance to have the conversations that we need to have today, okay? All right, so let me get prepared to share my screen with you. And I'm a Canva fan, and we can talk about how we use this as well if you're not already using Canva. but it is one of the things that I enjoy, and it's been one of the communication tools that I have used very much so in our remote learning journey. And so I was so excited about the topic today, Zoom out, because that's probably where we all may be right now, all zoomed out. I know that I can, and I think Neha mentioned the article that was in Ed Leadership and talked about having Zoom meetings back to back to back all day. Am I the host at this point? I just let someone in. Having Zoom meetings all day long, and Zoom fatigue is very real. Very, very real. And so just the insight to be able to take time to pause and reflect, because we have been going diligently over the last several months. And it has been one thing after another, and it's been hard to keep track because it's not things that we can expect. And so with that being said, I am so grateful and so impressed by the leadership of a day, and that would take the time to say, let's take time, let's pause, and let's reflect. And let's think about how we're moving forward. Get us to the next slide here. Okay, so this is just a slide that talks about, you can see the list of my experiences over there. And that's just for your information. It's also, as well as our relationship. I've had the opportunity to sit in many seats as this journey through education, many seats that it's brought me to. But one of the things that's most important, and I'm going to pull on you in a minute, is our why. So one of the things that I model for every new team member that comes into our school community, and we also have started doing it every year, is what is our why? And so my why comes from my upbringing. I am the child of two parents, a mom who grew up in rural North Carolina, and a dad who grew up in rural South Carolina, with different narratives when it comes to the history of the United States. Both of them grew up farming, one of them being a Black landowner, and that's a different narrative, but also the same outcome, where they had to fight for their opportunities by way of education. And so those became our dinner table conversations. When I speak to you about responsibility, a lot of what I view about responsibility comes from my upbringing and what my parents instilled in me. And so I bring that to life in my work every day. And so my why is equity, access, and achievement, because I want to make sure that each child receives the opportunities that is due to them. I want to make sure that that opportunity includes every level of access that there is possible, because that's going to be the part that's going to help them achieve. And I really started studying the achievement gap through my doctoral studies, or prior to that, but really dug in during my doctoral studies. And we know that equity and access play a huge role in the achievement, and achievement is for all. And it may look different for different students because we're all different, but achievement is for all. So my question to you is, what is your why? Because we have spent, and if I need to speak for myself, I'll speak for myself. And one of the things that I'm probably most pleased about in the article about ASCD is that I was just speaking truth. As a leader, this has not been an easy task. This has been probably, and you know what? If North Carolina schools shut down on March 14th, the governor of North Carolina closed schools, and you could not have told me before March 14th that I could have worked any harder than I was already working, until March 16th and March 17th and March 18th, when we had to go and start turning school over. And you know, you don't sign up for that without some type of investment. So I'm asking you today to be very thoughtful about what is your why. So do me a favor, take 60 seconds, close your eyes, and just think. I just kind of gave you a brief synopsis of my why, right? Just take about 60 seconds and think about your why. Okay, so I have some eyes opening for me. Good. So now what I would love for you to do is in the chat, just tell us your why, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. What is the reason that you can still get up and do this every single day for 3 months, as hard as it's become? Because it'll never be about anything that a day-in will do. It'll never be about anything that any supervisor would do for you. It's all coming from what gets you up every day to do this, what's inside of you. So tell us your why in the chat for a moment. Oh, our whys are coming in. I see self-worth and student wellness, making sure that people can believe in their ability, the development of our students, safety, yes, my passion, yes, the difference education makes to individuals and society, to help students understand and accept who they are, their capabilities and areas of improvement. Making class more interactive, okay. All right, happy children, yes. Okay, okay, just really wanted to step up and help our school accidentally. Oh, wow. There's that one. Somebody has that one student that made them stay. I love it. Okay, a unique opportunity to live independently. That's absolutely correct, because they have to live when they are beyond our walls. One of the things is, I believe that we are helping to develop the next citizens and contributors to our society. Yes, reaching out because people need it. Absolutely. So let's go. We're talking about our whys for a moment. So here we go. So what we are doing here is not business as usual. If someone could have told me when I was sitting in my methods class at North Carolina A&T State University that I would have to turn over an entire campus, 1,100 kids, 170 adults, to begin to teaching online, I would have never believed it. We probably never would have fathomed it. But what's happening here in context is something that we completely have not experienced before. The beauty is we get to experience it together. The challenge is nobody can help us anticipate what's next. But be very clear that as a community, we see each other and that we are doing this in a totally, totally, totally different vein than we were ever taught to do it. And that can be scary. So, what are our objectives for today? We're going to reflect on our journey. Why? Because COVID-19 ushered us into a whole new way of having to do things. And it's also when we think about the long term, because some of us, I remember having conversations with my team back in March and saying, guys, this has happened. So prepare for 2 weeks. And as things started happening, it was like, oh no, let's get prepared just in case we have to do this much longer. And lo and behold, even though we didn't realize it, we did not return to school before the school year ended, right? And so there are things that we can pat ourselves on the back because we did them exceptionally well. And I'm sure there's going to be some things that you can pat yourselves on the back too, because you did them exceptionally well. There's also some things that we've learned and that we want to make sure that moving forward, because this journey is not over, that we are considering those things as well. talk about strategies to maintain the momentum. Okay, so we have gotten into a rhythm. School is closed and summer is happening for a lot of schools, maybe not quite yet. But the growth that has taken place just because we've been here, we want to hold on to all of that. The energy that has taken place, we want to hold on to all of that. And our priorities moving forward. What are some things we have to be thinking about that have to come off the table that maybe we gave ourselves and gave our community some grace, but really have to be intentional about this because we don't know how long we will be in remote learning situations, or put it in context, how often. So just very quickly, and this is going to be one of those spaces where I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you care to share, because I believe acknowledging is important. All right. I think that you have to name something in order to really be able to deal with it. Okay. So let's talk for a minute. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? That is the most important question that I have learned to ask through all of this. How are you feeling? I'm inviting all of us, or any of us, I can't call on all of us, so let me take that back. Anybody who cares to share. How are you feeling right now? Completely confused. I get it. Yes. Consumed. Oh goodness. Yes. Grateful. Yes. Happy and sad. Yes. Disconnected. Yes. Hopeful this will end. Concerned. I hear and I see absolutely every last emotion. I feel them. I feel them. Meeting the challenges to feel worthwhile, scared, adapting to change. And it's the only constant. Change is the only constant. I love that. If any of you all are on Twitter, that's a great tweet. That would be a great tweet. Anxious, yes. Learning adaptability. Feeling confused and concerned too. Absolutely. All of those, and I share that because there was a moment, I'm sharing this screen with you or this image with you right now, because what you just shared with us is absolutely correct. Acknowledging is important because it's important for us to be able to speak what we are experiencing. And what we are experiencing is something that's extremely dynamic. Our feelings range from happy to sad, grateful to concerned. And that's okay. That's okay. I have gone through those same emotions over and over and over again as we've walked through this process. I put these pictures here because I think it shows just how dynamic this thing can be. So probably in a matter of about 2 days, I was posting both of these. One was the brave face that I put on to go into the elementary Google classroom with the kids for PE during Spirit Week for Hat Day. And it's so funny because when I actually posted that picture, I got so many, oh, great pic, you look great, awesome, how much fun, yes. Y'all, I was dying with confusion on the inside. There was so much going on. And when I finally got a chance to unpack that and think about that, what was it that was, I feel like I hadn't slept in about 2 weeks trying to pull everything together. But what was keeping me going? And I really had to unpack that and get to the part of hope. And whether it was hoping that that the condition would end soon, hoping that my students were okay, hoping that my staff was okay, hoping that something would feel normal. And so I share all that with you to say, whatever you're experiencing right now is totally natural and it's totally okay. And you're not alone in experiencing it. Because as you can see, we as a whole team and a group of colleagues are running through the whole gamut of emotions as well. So I'm experiencing all of that, and this is happening within our school community. You see those smiles? We had teachers who immediately began with their videos, and you know, and I'll say this, you know, we had to take time to be able to train folks and give them space to kind of dig in. Meal service was going, and just trying to create space to make everything okay. And so while I was running through my mind what's going on, all this is happening, I was like, you know what? We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And how is it that all of this can take place amidst the confusion and the uncertainty? And what it clarifies for us, and I'm sure you have some of those moments as well, is we can do the hard things. We've been doing it for several months now. We can do the hard things. Okay, so what are the hard things? So just to give you a little bit of context, I serve the best students in the world. They are absolutely amazing. I know some of y'all may feel like you might be able to argue with me about that. I'm not accepting any arguments. They are bright. They are extremely creative. And I enjoy being able to serve them absolutely every day. What they bring into our school, what our students bring into our school just compels my why even further. Now, I also serve a rural community. So when we talk about this idea of remote learning, which in context really started out as digital learning. In our community, it was pushing out, everybody has to go digital. And we had to say, wait, everybody can't be digital. We're in a rural community. Connectivity is an issue. Everybody's not gonna have access to internet. I serve a school community where majority of the students are served with the free and reduced lunch program. And so there were resources that we had to make sure were in the home, right? So we distributed devices, we distributed hotspots for internet so that our students can have internet services. And by the same token, we're still living in a rural community, so just because I have the hotspot does not necessarily mean that I am gaining connectivity to the internet. But there was the opportunity there. We're also a school that has been labeled low performing. Now, we are enjoying the success of having met growth our last accountability year. And we're really looking forward and really working hard and really pushing to be able to exceed growth this year. And be working towards and have that help us work towards not being low performing. But in the midst of COVID, tests were canceled. And so we won't have that opportunity this year. But when we looked at the hard things, and so our mission is to educate, equip, empower, and excel. It was really to be able to continue upon our mission. But that looked totally different in a COVID world. And so that being said, we had to rethink what it meant to care and support. We had to rethink what it meant to keep our community whole, or not even what it meant, but how. And we also had to rethink how we would continue learning in the process. And so what it boils down to is the fact that we have these missions and we're operating these missions. Ours, educate, equip, empower, and excel. But the real test here is to our culture. Are we the school communities that we say we are? hardship reveals a lot about people, and our school community is built around people. And so how are we that school community? All right, so let's talk about culture for a minute. Did we see, from a school culture perspective, did we see what we expected? And were we surprised in any way? And if anybody wants to speak, I welcome you. Do our participants have the ability to unmute themselves? Or they do? Okay.
Yes, yes. Somebody'd like to talk in terms of the food for thought that's put up. Please feel free to unmute yourself and say something about it. Yes, Hussein.
Hi. Were we surprised in any way? I would really say that yes. Initially, we thought that this wouldn't be effective, wouldn't be impactful. But I think so. The teachers and the leaders and everybody associated have created such a system that it is quite sustainable. Students are enjoying. They are happy, they are learning, and I think so. Even there was a lot of debate about how much time screen time is good, how much synchronous, asynchronous, but whatever it is. But overall, people are like somebody had expected that it would be effective 40 to 50%, but it is like it has turned out to be 70 to 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Neeta, you've also raised your hand. Neeta, would you? Yes, Chaunté?
I was saying, did you hear all of that? It was coming in a little choppy on my side.
It was a little choppy.
Okay.
What he was trying to say was that students are also kind of enjoying, and we obviously didn't know what we were set in for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Saint, for sharing. Do you see another hand?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just saying that what really surprised me was the extreme agility that the teachers displayed. You know, no one had prepared them for this, and yet the way so many of them adapted and took this on, hats off, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the chat also continues with that in terms of surprised and heartened about how the teachers rose to the occasion. Continuity is the question, as there is no end. A lot of appreciation for how fast the teachers have adapted to this.
Right.
And, it is surprising, and we are thinking about what next. Oh, this is lovely. I call my teachers digital warriors. Okay.
Yes, yes, definitely. And that's a great description. I see a couple of more raised hands. Well, I see it popping up on the screen.
Savita Sharma, would you like to go?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thanks for the interactive session. Actually, I want to share, there are many surprises, but I just want to share two. First, I saw that my students, they were so worried about those who were not connected. And they not only called them to their place, but also made their own videos and shared with them. And moreover, parents, like, they appreciated that, because now they are helicopter parents. They watch how the way the teachers are teaching. So now they are appreciating their efforts, how teachers, they are taking so much care of the students and how well they are being. And teachers, they are also like calling parents if students are not online. So they are appreciating these efforts.
Great. So parents are also appreciating the efforts.
That is great. I am loving these expectations and surprises because that's the part that keeps us going. Was there another hand that was raised
Yes,
as well?
Indira Satnur, sorry. Indira, would you like to unmute yourself? Okay. Maybe
Pramila ma'am wants to speak. Pramila ma'am.
Yes, Pramila, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a couple of reflections on the chat as well,
On the chat.
Chaunté. Yes, that the parents have also been very extremely supportive, and I could come out of my comfort zone and get child-centric, deal with what they like. So it was a surprise that I could do that. Is one of the reflections, and.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a digital revolution. And besides teachers, parents and students have also risen to the occasion. Okay.
Yeah, and I see Pramila put her comment in the chat about teachers working online using their mobile phones without textbooks. Absolutely.
Right.
And
Yes.
so we adapted. We adapted very quickly. I'm sorry, I've made the chat too big up here. We've adapted very quickly, and we've adapted in some really good ways. You know, and one of the things we talked about in our school community was the fact that we have some things happening that we just don't want to lose when we start school again, be it remotely or face-to-face. The things that you were talking about, like the connections with families, the appreciation, the collaboration, the effort around technology. You know, when we reflected, we were like, man, we've really, you know, missed out on some really great opportunities by the pace that we moved with implementing technology. Okay, so let's look at so here, motivation in a COVID world is looking a lot different, huh? We kind of think of motivation as something that we are enticed to do or something that kind of draws us in, versus when I am listening to your responses and I am learning about your experiences and we're talking about your why. So yes, your motivation starts with your why, but you know, you're getting energy from the great conversations that you're having from parents. You're getting energy from the way the kids have risen to the occasion. You're gaining energy from learning about the new technology tools. You are gaining such great energy, and that's the momentum that we want to keep. Right now, disclaimer, one of the things, and I don't know if you all have talked about it in your school community, but we talked about it in ours. It's so easy in this digital world to really be working what feels like 24/7, right? You know, and we'll talk about some of the flexibilities in a minute, but you know, in our school community, we had teachers who were literally working 7 days a week, trying to be flexible and trying to meet those needs because parents and kids were rising to the occasion. And that's not realistic to keep that up. So that's not what I'm communicating today. But I am communicating the sustainability piece. What are those things that we've learned and how do we make them sustainable? And where do we go from here? Oh, I jumped off of presentation mode. I'm gonna try to go back. Here we go. All right, so sustaining this motivation, I almost wanna call it momentum, now that we've had all of these conversations. There's 4 principles here: care, And I'm hearing you all have those conversations about care when you're talking about the way that you're engaging families and parents. Clarity, community, building that community, and also control, right? Controlling our narrative and the work, and not letting the work control us. Okay? So let's unpack these a little bit. We're going to walk through care. And just think about some of the things that some of you all mentioned in the chat when I said, what are you feeling right now? You talked about the anxiety, right? You talked about being concerned. And we know that we wear that stuff, right? And so you saw my brave face picture with the hat. But y'all, I just went outside in the backyard, and I promise you it took me about 20 minutes to get that picture, right? There was no rocket science to that thing, but it took forever because you're wearing all of this all over you, right? Okay, and so are the teams that we serve. They're wearing it too. You know, when we think about our students and their families, so do our teams. And so when we're talking about this motivation or this momentum, we can't lose sight of care, okay? And that's setting the expectations. And care has to do, for us, had to deal with the flexibility. What types of flexibilities do people need to be able to try to make this work? And so you can see scheduling, and it also had to be task management, right? Just being very thoughtful. This work is not work we've done anymore. So being really thoughtful about what types of things we were actually asking people to do and where we put work. Giving permission, by example, to feel and express hardship. Okay, so, you know, life was still happening. COVID was happening, but so was life. And COVID is impacting life as well. So it's giving permission. And one of the ways that I was able to do that was just by sending a Wednesday check-in email. Say, hey, how are you doing? That first week that I did that, I had an email chain of about 100 emails long. And some people were okay, but some people weren't. And they just needed space to be able to say that. But what it also did for me was it gave me space to be able to say, okay, this is something we need to be looking at when I have that. So also from that, and I'll talk about it in the next slide, was started a Sunday Serenity to get our week set off on a good note. And so any of those things that we learned that folks were anxious about, not to ignore it, not to brush it, and not just kind of leave it as this is just where we are. But if there's an answer, being able to provide that answer, being able to provide that answer in a caring way, especially if it's not going to be the one that we believe people wanted, like a return to school message. And also to set the tone for the week. Because we know as school leaders, we need for our adults to be good in order for our children to be good. And it's also to be able to say, we don't have these answers. And so people know not to continue to wait and rely on attentive ear, or know when they can expect. And one of the biggest things was ensuring tools and resources, right? And so if we have to do this, what types of resources does that require? But and hear my heart, that does not mean, does not put us at a loss, or that's within the model that you have, right? And so one of the things that we knew was that all of our kids were not going to have technology in the beginning, and we did not want them to lose out. So what else did remote learning include other than time online? It included contact with the teacher, where the teacher could walk you through. But it also meant that we sent home textbooks and things in addition to devices. so that our kids still had access to their learning materials and to be able to keep that continuity. And it also means that as we're moving forward, we're providing our teachers with tools that we believe will help, like whiteboards that they can have at their homes. Our kids will receive whiteboards that they can keep at their homes for the formative assessment. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Clarity was so key. And you see up there, I have the quote from Brene Brown, "Clear is kind." Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. With such uncertainty, providing as much clarity is key in helping folks to sustain. Why? Everybody's looking for answers. So if I have answers, I can know how to move. That's one of the most challenging pieces of the summer, right? We are waiting for answers. We are waiting to figure out, we are planning in our community, we're planning at least 3 different scenarios, and we're waiting for the answer that says, just plan this one, right? So what is clarity? Is creating clarity around the pieces that you do have, and make sure everything has a why, right? It's planning everything, and it's communicating the plan so folks don't feel like they're being left in the dark. I think one of the things that's key is, as the work changes, is that roles and responsibilities piece, right? One of our biggest questions was, how are TAs supposed to serve in a remote classroom? Well, we had to figure that part out. How are TAs supposed to serve if the teacher is delivering that instruction? But also, as we become more familiar with the tech tools, we were able to figure that out with more clarity. But it's the roles and responsibilities and honoring them so that folks don't feel like they're getting pulled left and right in the midst of all of the uncertainty that we're already experiencing. And it's scheduling the information. And so we had a system of communicating information that has supported us in making sure our folks could just feel good about what's happening, right? So Sunday Serenities went out on Sunday, and they received answers to pieces that were troubling them or things to look forward to. Professional development went out on Wednesdays. Fridays was something fun. And also our check-in emails went out on Wednesday. So, hey, how are you doing? But what that also did was it didn't create a space where folks were feeling like they constantly had to be looking for something from us. And it also communicated a space is if we broke that, then they knew it was important because we had a system. With our families, we employed a ton of mass communication. So we kept it with our regular stuff, like our weekly newsletters and our call out system, but we also went to using videos. InShot has become another one of my new favorite tools. Why? Because videos extend our reach. And when we had really important things that we needed for our family to know, we didn't want them to sit in an inbox. And we didn't want them to ignore the phone call. But on their social media and various places, they gained access to our various videos about big ideas. And I'm not seeing the chat right now. So if there's any questions popping up, Neha, if you want to let me know, or Vidushi, if you want to let me know, and we can stop and address those. Community. And so you all have already touched on this, is how we can find that COVID has helped us develop into a community. And that's through that intentional constant contact. Now, were there children that we could not reach? Yes. Yes, there were. But we made sure that we did everything possible to be able to reach them. And we made sure that the contacts that we were making were meaningful. Maintain our systems of collaboration, because there are things that our teachers were accustomed to, right? They were accustomed to collaborating on lessons together in their professional learning communities. So we wanted to make sure that those practices stayed. They were accustomed to leadership team meetings. that were able to communicate direction. We kept those. They were accustomed to certain professional development, like our beginning teachers. They enjoyed that, so we made sure that we kept that. Areas of collaboration that we knew that they needed, and increased collaboration around the unknowns, right? This thing is all new to all of us, and so there's a heavy weight on us as school leaders to try to get this right, and the fact of the matter is there's no right answer. But there's a lot of context here. There's the school context, and even from the school context, there's the leadership context, there's the teacher context, there's the student context, there's the parent context. When all of this stuff happens, everybody's bringing a different context to something that's completely new and has never been done before. So what does that mean? It means we bring everybody back to the table. Now, does that literally mean, well, especially in a COVID space where we're all locked in, we don't bring everybody to the table, but we use a lot of different methods, like the surveys, the Zoom calls, town hall meetings, however we need to do that to be able to reach, and just being present. You know, being on Zoom calls all day long, it meant that I was probably in Zoom calls that I wouldn't have been in pre-COVID, but I was post-COVID because it meant something to people for me to be present with them as they were having certain conversations. And you know, first and foremost for me was making sure everyone was good. And then control. And control, I struggled with using the word control, but I think it communicates most clearly, because as we begin to settle in, we didn't want to lose sight of, we have to still open school when we return, right? And at that point in time, we were hoping that it would be face-to-face. There was, you know, we had no reason to question that it wouldn't be. But we know that may be different. But back to that point around increased collaboration, we started having the conversation, what will we build? If we have a blank slate, which is what COVID feels like it has done for schools all over the world, right? Who will we become now with a blank slate? Every child has a blank slate. Every parent has a blank slate. Every teacher has a blank slate. Every admin has a blank slate. Remember that part about the culture and about who you are? This tells us who you are. This is the opportunity to build exactly who you expect to be with intentionality. So as a school community, we started having conversations about what we intended to build. Why? Because it allowed us to control our narrative. It also allowed us to control our work. We are beginning to tell our own story about what our school community will be. We are also defining what it looks like. And so you'll see up there, what happened? Well, with COVID, we ran into a ton of technology issues. Who didn't have devices? Who didn't have internet access? One of the things we learned is, as tech savvy as our students seem to us, navigating the QWERTY keyboard was difficult versus navigating the phone keyboard. So if we had to do this for a long time, how do we get students prepared to be able to do this efficiently in a way that's not going to frustrate them, right? Parent engagement. We love the engagement of our parents during this time. We love the partnership that we built. Having a team to be intentional about designing that. Social emotional learning, just like we have run this gamut of emotions, so has our students, so have our families. And so making sure that we come in with the support. And one of the things that we know is that we have to plan this virtual as well as face-to-face in order to maintain the continuity, but the supports are there. And then college and career readiness. And that's when we really focus on our core instruction and what the opportunities around that look like. Okay, and so here's our context here, because education as we know it will not be the same. There's no way in the world. Yes.
Just to remind you about the time.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So we would like to have at least 10 minutes of Q&A conversation.
Gotcha.
So,
All right, we're going to go. Okay. So we had, you want 10 minutes of Q&A?
This is very tempting to get into breakout rooms. Do we have the permission to, for all of us to stay on till 5:15? Then we could have the breakout rooms for 5 minutes, come back and discuss. But Chaunté, would that be okay?
That's fine with me.
Any show of thumbs up if we're okay on the chat? Okay, we have some of us who are saying yes with breakout rooms.
Why not finish the presentation and then take the break off after 10 minutes?
So this would be a part of the breakout rooms would add to the discussion. So I think let's have that. Yeah, we have most of us saying room? Yes, yes.
So, all right, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll go for 5 minutes and we'll come back and I'll jump us to the assessment for learning and then give us an opportunity to do the question and answer. Is that okay?
Yeah, so would you want to tell us what do we want to do in the breakout rooms?
Sure, in the breakout rooms, just a minute to unpack because I went through the care, clarity, community, and control piece very quickly. So in your breakout rooms, give you the opportunity to react in a small group and just unpack your thoughts about these 4 components here of sustaining our momentum.
Yes, so Chaunté, I have administered the breakout rooms and everybody will receive an invite. So please join your breakout rooms and in 5 minutes, we will be back. Yes, Chaunté, is that okay?
Yes, yeah, that's great. Go for it.
Pramila, you haven't been able to join the breakout room, Pramila. Priya, Kasturi. Vidushi, you also haven't been able to join a breakout room. Do we all have network issues or?
Hi, I did, and yeah, some problem, and then I was chucked out of that room.
Okay. Do you want me to send you back?
No, that's okay. So I think the discussion's pretty ongoing there. That's fine.
Okay. So, yeah, I think it's been low bandwidth for people who haven't been able to join the breakout rooms. Yeah. So we'll give it another 3 minutes and back, I think. It's been already 2 minutes.
We can also go ahead and discuss here, with everybody who's here, what.
Yes, that's what I thought, if we could unmute, but I'm not sure if people can hear.
Or they can also chat as well.
Arpita, Sunita, Priya, Kasturi, Rupesh, Kavita, Pramila, if you could even put down on chat in terms of what have your strategies been? Oh yeah, people have been dropping out. Yeah. What happened, Namita? You were thrown out. Your audio is not there still. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I said I was in breakout room 1.
And you were thrown out. Yeah. Do you want me to send you back? But I think it's time to kind of call them back too.
Okay, then I'll just wait here.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So what is something that you'd like to share, Namita? Care, clarity, community, control. Your strategy.
Yeah, I think one is care. In the last time session that I attended in the pre-primary webinar, was Poki sharing about getting in touch with families. So we've started doing that, and I think that's working very well.
Nice.
Insight into what's happening with the kids, which is definitely having an impact on the way we are functioning. So,
fantastic.
Yeah. Also with the teachers, we started having our reflection meetings now once a week.
Okay.
Who is helping? So I think everyone's now more empathetic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I'm experiencing that, like even working with our own teams and, because everybody's situation is so different right now.
Yeah.
That one has to be like okay with it, with less devices, children wanting to use them. And then when we have these webinars and all, it's like, registrations and all, it's like a 24/7 thing actually. So,
yeah. So we have this one child who is borderline autistic. Now his father sent me a video. So his mother, because he can't connect to this whole online thing.
Yeah.
They've been practicing. The mother from another room does a virtual call and teaches, and the father sits with the child so that till he gets it that, that is a teacher you have to respond to and it's not a TV that you're watching.
Wow.
Yeah, it's superb. Every day they are doing this with him so that he understands this is the normal way to communicate now.
Super.
Yeah.
Hats off to these parents, yeah?
Yeah, it's only when we got in touch with them, we realized, okay, that is also a struggle this child is having. And
yeah. That's so touching.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Okay, I'm going to now just close the breakout rooms so that everybody can come back. Others, we'll start chatting and the breakout rooms will go on. Hello, Father Francis. So we can see that deep conversations are happening because some of the breakout rooms are going to be there till the last second. I can see that.
Oh, it's all good. It is all good. Oh, I probably need to return to the screen sharing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we have not more than, say, 10 minutes, 9 minutes to wind up the session, Chaunté.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that is motivation enough, I think.
Yes.
You're back inside the main room. I know there were conversations happening, sorry. But yeah.
So we're looking ahead And we are headed to our priorities and want to take a moment just to talk about this assessment for learning. And I had the opportunity to join breakout room number 2. So great job, breakout room number 2. I enjoyed you. Glad to say that publicly. But assessment for learning, really thinking about those tools and systems that we will employ to ensure students are learning. So what do we want to see? We want to see student growth. We also want to see student mastery, as well as ongoing system. And that's going to be dealing with traditional means as well as technology. So one of the things, and forgive me, breakout room number 2, I forget who mentioned this, well, it came up several times, was understanding the why. There's a why to assessment. And that why is about understanding student learning by way of growth and by way of mastery. Now, when we talk about this in a system, because we don't want to just lean towards one assessment tool. And we also want to make sure that we understand what students are retaining on an ongoing basis. One of the things that we are learning is that there are some tools that we use in the classroom that we can still use in the digital world. And that may be connecting continuity or creating continuity for our students. And one of those is, I think I mentioned earlier, we're using the whiteboards as a formative assessment. So our kids will now have whiteboards when we open schools again. Why? Because they are accustomed to being able to hold up those whiteboards during their classroom. But sending whiteboards home with them will also allow them to be accustomed to holding them up during their Zoom meetings and their Google Hangouts, right? We are exploring what assessments we will use. Why? Because some of the conditions are so stringent that we may not be getting the data that we expect to get or hope to get, not in a standardized environment. So what we are encouraging our teachers to do, and what I encourage you to do, is be very thoughtful about going back to that when we're talking about assessment for learning, the questioning practices, using tools in your Google Class, or we use Google Classroom, using tools in your platforms for learning that allow students to do the quick formative assessments. So you can check their learning, be it a multiple choice. Sometimes you can use the Kahoots. Kahoot is a great assessment. It's quick. It's not something that the students have to invest in, but it's giving you real-time information on an ongoing basis. But also, what types of performance assessments, if we have students in our cameras, right? What types of performance tasks can we be asking them to complete? And I know math teachers, we can think from a conceptual perspective, things that we can get students to build or create that help them demonstrate the mastery of our mathematical concepts. How do we get students to demonstrate writing and comprehension in real time? Right? And so those are some of the thoughts very quickly regarding assessment for learning, but it's something I would love to dig in with you all when we have more time and to be able to honor your time today. So moving on, this is us getting ready to close out. But we've come a long way and we are growing. And I think ultimately what I hope that you walk away with is understanding we can do this, and we are definitely doing it together. And I'm so glad to be able to do it with you. And so I don't know, I'll turn it back over to Neha and Vidushi. If you'd like to take some time to be able to answer questions or how you would like to proceed. But I thank you.
Thank you, Chaunté. And I'd like to keep the floor open if anybody would like to share some reflections or ask any questions. We have about 4 minutes before we close the meeting. So we have one from Genevieve who's saying that how do we know how much the child is learning as we have less control? Only assessment will not work. So she's saying that, you know, it's something beyond assessments that we have to look for.
Right, and thinking about assessment differently, right? We think of assessment so often as pen and paper or the, you know, a multiple choice type assessment, you know, so it goes back to that questioning. And I think part of it is the question how. You know, one of the things I could assess was through the chat. Having different participants on the call today use the chat to respond to questions or tell me how you're feeling. And that wasn't even something publicly, right? But it allowed me to adjust to the information that you were providing for me. How do we know how much a child is learning when we have less control on this? And I think it's taking that opportunity to design what gives you control. Okay, so when I think about, and it was back to the comment we were making in breakout room 2, there's a why behind everything. So there's a why behind the assessment beyond what it's learning, right? I need to know if this child has mastered this skill. So on the other side of the computer, without it being some type of digital assessment or something that might be compromised, how can this child show me their mastery of this skill? Is it something that they're writing in real time and putting up to the screen for you to be able to see what they have completed? Are we working from a Google Doc that allows them to type in their response real time and you give them feedback in that moment? So we have an opportunity here too to create what we believe will help to increase growth and student mastery in this moment.
Sure. There's one question for you, Chaunté, is what were you surprised by? What was your, let me just go back to that question. What is something that has surprised you the most?
What has surprised me the most? I think it is the level of care. And I come from a very caring community. And I shared with breakout room number 2, you know, I can be very type A and linear and very task oriented. And so the level of vulnerability that I've learned to display, but also the level of vulnerability and the community we've built around that has been absolutely amazing. It's one of the things that I didn't necessarily expect, but I think we've enjoyed as a school community, and one of the things that I hope continues as we continue to build who we are becoming. Yeah.
Yes. We have some suggestions about, you know, thinking about assessments differently. And I guess, and also there's one question, maybe the last 2 questions we could look at is how do we go about student portfolios?
Yeah, how do we go about?
That's one thing about how do we go about creating student portfolios is what I understand that question to mean.
So one of the tools that we use in a digital world was, well, naturally in Google Classroom, we use Google Classroom. So that's something that they can upload to. Google Classroom was more difficult for our smaller babies. So we actually use Class Dojo for that. But also, you know, sometimes keeping it simple when it comes to access and equity. And, you know, if we needed for folks to just take pictures of things and email them to us, or take pictures of us and text message it to us, we still were able to receive that. We were still able to speak to the students' work and their capacity, and eventually get to a space to be able to print it out or house it in a drive somewhere as a part of that portfolio.
Great. Yes, thank you for also putting in your key reflections from the breakout rooms. That's really nice.
Yes, thank
so that
you.
everybody else is also able to do that. And Mark is sparking off another conversation by saying, why do you believe US surveys are showing so many teachers plan to leave the profession? Okay, that's going to be something that is a conversation that we should probably pick up in our next community of practice, if that is something that's happening, and is that kind of, one would say that, you know, is it a signal for something? Let's read a little more about that and come back to it. Yes, Mark? So we'll reserve that for another Saturday, hopefully. And on this note, I'd like to thank everybody who made it today, and thank you, Chaunté.
Well, thank you. I've so enjoyed.
And I'm
thank
sure,
you so much.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll have more opportunities to work together as well. So
absolutely.
Do leave your quick feedback. I know we are all like done with loads of, you know, filling feedback and Google Forms, but this is a very quick one. For the ones who type fast, it won't take you more than a minute, and others max 2 minutes. It's just about also asking how we would all like to, what we would all like to, you know, talk about and connect on. And that's how I think further on Chaunté would also like to support us in this. Yes?
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much. And feel free to unmute, talk. We'll be here for another 5-7 minutes. And you could also, you know, put down your reflections on chat too. So thank you very much.
Oh, y'all are an amazing audience. Thank you.